Hello, everybody, and welcome to this quick book review session. My name is Momin, and I'm joined by...
Colin, and today we're going to talk a little bit about The Way of Kings.
I have only just started reading Brandon Sanderson. I can never say that right.
Brando Sando.
Yeah. I have only just started reading Brando Sando, and by that I mean, of course, that I've read through both The Way of Kings, oops, I bumped the mic, and Words of Radiance. And we're just sort of gonna talk through the experience of reading this book, of the experience that I had reading this book, because Colin had a lot of thoughts about the way I was reading it.
I did.
And I kind of went into this knowing absolutely nothing about Brandon Sanderson, but you've been reading for a while.
Yeah, I guess I can do like a little mini rendition of what I've done. So I got into Brandon Sanderson books when a buddy, like 6 years ago, recommended reading The Way of Kings. Know nothing, no information. He's like, hey, you like magic? You like fantasy? Read this book. And forgot about it for a couple of years. Then I was like, you know what? Maybe I should pick the book up and read it. So I got like a couple hundred pages in, and then slowly the gears started turning. I was like, actually, I think I kind of like this. Then I finished the first book, and then the rest is history. I read book 2, book 3, book 4, read Mistborn, both eras. Then I went back to reading Stormlight Archive again, read it another time. Actually, I listened to the audiobook. Then finished it the second time, was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Then I went on just like a content dormancy, just nothing happened. And then he announced the 5th book of the Stormlight Archive, and I told myself, oh my gosh, here we go again. I have to reread everything so I can catch it in its glory. So it came out in December, and I hadn't yet started rereading the series, so I spent the whole next like 6 months catching back up by reading them to finally read it this past December. And here we are today.
And December was my birthday, which is when Colin surprised me with my copy of Way of Kings, and he wrote a really cute note on the front of the book, which was really, it was emotional blackmail to get me to read The Way of Kings. And it worked because I had fallen out of reading for a while, and then I was not really in the mood to read a 2,000-page novel. What's it? 1,000-page novel? A tome. But because it was so lovingly gifted, I was like, at least have to give it a try. I started reading it, and I really got into it. So I've only read the first 2 books, and the way I want to do this little recording here, obviously it's going to be heavy on spoilers. So if anybody's watching this that hasn't read Brandon Sanderson yet or is thinking about getting into The Way of Kings, and you don't want spoilers, this is probably not the right video. But one of the things that I want to get out right out the gate is one of the ways I really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed both these books, and I really want to continue reading the Stormlight Archives. But the way that I love content is by hating on it. So I'm going to arrive at this discussion talking about everything that I didn't like about it. Well, the truth is, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm just going to talk like a hater.
Yeah, of course. Like we kind of have to, right? Because in order to feel like you're getting a sense of what, understanding, even enjoyment, you have to find things you want to criticize, right? So I think even though I might not agree with some of your points, which totally fine, I would say, yeah, let's just do it. Another reason why I wanted to get Momin into this is recently Brandon Sanderson just finished the crowdfunding and shipment of the Stormlight RPG, and with it came a bunch of really beautiful art and stuff related to mostly Roshar, the planet on which the Stormlight Archive takes place, or the system, I should say, and talks a lot about the different cultures, fauna, environments, just everything in general, weapons, military tactics, really cool. But with this, kind of reinvigorated now we have something visual to show you. It's not just this, think about this, imagine this, some of it's here in one art form, so it's great.
Okay, so right out the gate, I was so pissed with how the names are written in this book. Like, It's such a good book. I opened it, and the very first thing on it is like the Silver Kingdoms era map of Alethkar, of Roshar, sorry, not Alethkar. And it's so well put together, and the illustrations are wonderful. And I'm like, wow, this has really thin paper for a lot of text. But, I bet people listening are going to enjoy the page flipping sounds so much.
Better get used to it now.
The prelude to the Stormlight Archives, I think I should just say this right now. Like, it was and will probably be my favorite chapter.
Really? Okay.
The prelude, because obviously it's the first thing that I read. When I get into a series, I'm sure maybe if I at a certain point fall in love with this series to the point that I feel compelled to read the acknowledgments and the forewords and all that stuff, I might go there. But I tend to skip those all the time, and I jump straight into the prelude. I almost skipped the prelude because I thought the prelude was a foreword and didn't actually have any story in it. But then I started reading it, and I was like, what the hell is happening in this? None of this makes sense.
Can I be honest with you? I think I skipped the prelude the first time I read it.
Yeah.
Because I did the exact same thing you did, but didn't catch it. I went, oh, prelude. And then I saw a name that looked a little bit unfamiliar and went, probably just what I thought it was. And then skipped to book one, The Way of Kings, 4,500 years later. And then just kept reading. And then eventually I think I finished it. And it referenced a couple people that I'm sure we'll talk about. And I was like, wait, who are those people? Like, I've never seen those names before. And lo and behold, on my second read through, I went, oh, I missed probably one of the most important preludes to a series.
The prelude, when I was reading it for the first time, it felt important. Like, I knew something big was happening. And I really, it did a lot to captivate me into the world. And I read it, and I was like, wow, that's so interesting. Like, they're talking about this crazy, I could tell that the world building was going to take off the way he was describing, the Thunderclast and how they put their swords and the Oath Pact needs to break and all of that stuff. I was like, that is so cool. I don't know anything that's happening, but it makes me want to know about it. And then I flipped over to where it said Book 1, Way of Kings, 4,500 years later, and I immediately got pissed. I was like, okay, I was interested in Kalek. I was interested in Jezrien. What was his name? Is that right?
Jezrien.
Jezrien? I don't know how to pronounce a single name.
I pronounce it Jezrien.
Oh, that's right, because I think
originally
universe,
I tried to pronounce it Jezrien, then I heard the audiobook and went, oh, I think it's pronounced Jezrien.
Because you told me that the J's are pretty much ya's in this one, which is another thing that kind of pissed me off, because all of the names, I'm going to piss about the names so much, because every time I read and pronounce a name, I get thrown off by one, I can't pronounce it, and two, the way it's supposed to be pronounced isn't how I would want to pronounce it.
I can't wait till we get to some of the other characters, because it's going to be so good. It's going to be so good to talk to you about some of these characters. Anyway.
But so that was the first thing. I was really, really into the prelude. Yeah. But one of the things that happens is you jump through and you start the story and you meet, first you meet Szeth.
Szeth, son Vallano, truthless of Shinovar, wore white on the day he was to kill a king.
Exactly.
You turned me into a meme, please do.
I did. I thought the story for Szeth was really fun. Mm-hmm. Because this is the prologue, right? The prelude reads like a prologue, and then the prologue reads like a prologue.
Yeah.
And I had the same sort of emotions to this as well, because I was like, oh shit, this guy's so cool. Szeth is he's flying around, he's absorbing the light from these gemstones, he's off murdering people, and he's discussing his orders to be seen, be loud, be anything but stealthy. And it's this is whoa, this is a very interesting way to kill a king. And then he's got all his powers, he's really capable. All of that is a lot of fun. And then what happens? Chapter 1, we move to a different perspective. And then we don't see Szeth again for half the book.
Not just a different perspective. You move to a different perspective how many years later?
5-6 years later, I think, because this is,
5 years later. So you go from what you think is going to be where the book takes place, then you have 4,500 years later, then you have 5 years later, and you're like, what is going on?
Yes.
Is this going to be an absolute time skip nightmare?
So
Which you could argue it's going to be a time skip nightmare.
I
As
mean-
you kind of have interludes and stuff like that. So
yes. So that kind of just reminded me of like one of those memes. I think it was an episode from Make Some Noise or something
okay.
with Brennan Lee Mulligan. I could be wrong about where I'm getting this from, but it was like basically this one person's trying to explain how a fantasy world works, and they tell this crazy story about how there's this king and he's been overthrown and there's these people and then there's a rebellion and all of this happens. And then they, after giving like a 45-minute discussion of this crazy world building, they're like, and then our story takes place 8,000 years in the future.
And you're like, oh my gosh. Like,
So that was a joke. And I'm like, this book is living up to that meme because it was 4,500 years later. And then when it went to 5 years later after that, I was like, can the author make up their mind of when the story is happening? But
8 months later is the next chapter.
you know, so I was kind of, the opening of this book is kind of a whiplash because you've got the perspective from 4,500 years ago, then you've got the perspective from Zeth, and then when chapter Stormblessed opens, book 1, part 1, chapter 1, Stormblessed, it opens from the perspective of Sen, who is a minor character. Right? And I got into it. I was like, oh, Sen, this is going to be the guy we're going to follow for the rest of the book, hopefully. I mean, I should have understood that that's not what's going to happen because it said Kaladin and Shallan on the first page, but I didn't yet know the pattern. So I was like, okay, Sen, this is the guy we're going to follow. Only for Sen to die in this chapter. Which was fine, I guess. Because I thought like, oh, so like in Game of Thrones, like you don't have in the books chapters that are from the perspective of Robb Stark. Even though it's Robb's story, they're all Catelyn's perspective. So for a minute there, I was like, oh, I see the name Kaladin on the first page, but we're following Sen's perspective. So maybe this is going to be one of those situations where, oh, we learn Kaladin's story from other people's perspective. And that wasn't the case. And then we have that 8 months later skip. Honestly, that was such a moment, though, because we've got this whole chapter of Kaladin Stormblessed out there on the battlefield, swinging a spear like nobody's ever swung a spear before, and then he like encounters a shard bearer, because the book does this really fun thing where like they first mention shard bearers from Sen's perspective. And he just sees a High Lord wearing regular shiny armor, and he's like, that must be a shard bearer. And then the guy another minor character, he's like, that's not a shard bearer. That's just fancy armor. You'll know a shard plate when you see one. And then eventually in the same chapters, like they check off gun it in the same chapter, which is really nice that they do actually have a shard bearer writing in. And I do like Brandon Sanderson's descriptive method because it really helps me visualize the scene so crisply in my mind. I'm so visual with my imagination, right? So like when I'm reading, it needs to look like a movie in my head. And I know that that's not the case for like, I don't think even you imagine books that way.
Well, I do, just not the same way. Like there'll be days where I'm reading and I feel like I can start to visualize something, but then there'll be other days that I feel like I'm there but can't see it. Like the immersion is present, but it's just my mind works that way, and I still have lots of fun reading. But I kind of forgot what was happening in the first part of the book here, if I'm being completely honest with you. In my head, it started with Kaladin being a slave, not at the part where he was a part of Amaram's
army.
Yeah, no, I kind of forgot about that.
So let me catch you up on it then.
See, the fine details have been lost.
Yeah, because it's been what? You haven't read these books in a few years? Or at least a year?
No, I haven't read Way of Kings for a year, and that has been bled out across all 5 books. So
yeah, and because you were doing a quick read through the whole series just to catch up for the fifth book.
It was a quick read through, but I tailored my reading to prepare for what I had been told was kind of coming for book 5. So I was looking for those pieces and not actually like
putting the story together.
No. I put the story together, but I didn't actually be like, oh yeah, Kaladin had this experience prior to. I already kind of knew that he had an experience. So
yeah, so the first chapter was it was a demonstration of Kaladin's warlike prowess as a soldier, because he is shown from Sen's perspective, who is very green on the field, and he has no idea how war works, and he doesn't even know which way the enemy is going to come from or something like that. And he's literally pissing himself in that chapter. Like the commander has to tell him, hey, just go over there and take a piss. You don't want to be distracted by a full bladder on the battlefield. So he's a total child, and Kaladin bribes another officer so he can get Sen into his squadron. And from Sen's perspective, Kaladin is this incredible, shining, well-accomplished soldier, as well-accomplished as a Dark Eyes could possibly be.
A knight with a shining spear.
A knight with a shining spear. And like he comes through and demonstrates his leadership. His squad mates really clearly respect him, and he commands a very like casual but powerful aura. Like he's clearly not a general, but he has the respect of a general, at least within his squad.
Absolutely.
And he is so he basically dances on the battlefield. And something goes wrong. I don't remember the exact detail, but his squadron ends up in a vulnerable situation. Particularly Sen ends up in a vulnerable situation where Kaladin has to break formation and run to save Sen. And despite being outnumbered, he takes out his little pocket knife and he swirls his spear around and he takes down like 4 different men at once. I don't think he kills all of them, but he at least knocks them all out and is able to defend Sen and starts administering medical care for him as well, until other members of the squadron form a protective ring around them. And it is then that they are broken off from the main force of Amaram's army, who it is clearly mentioned that Kaladin really respects Amaram. And what he's doing in demonstrating his prowess as a soldier is he wants him and his squad to end up on the Shattered Plains. Because he's like, that's where the real war is being fought. It's not these green soldiers that have no discipline and no fighting ability for just having petty border disputes. That's the real war. That's the Vengeance Pact. And if I'm good enough here, Amaram's going to send me to the Shattered Plains. Just going to send my entire squad to the Shattered Plains. And that's where we're going to fight the real war. And then, when they think all is clear, a Shardbearer on horseback shows up.
Yeehaw!
Yeehaw! That scene is so well described in the moment. Like, there's this, in my brain, I have this exact image. I feel like this is the exact image that Brandon Sanderson wanted to portray for that moment. It almost looks like an empty field of stone. There's just the rusty stone colors all around, blank sky, and a horse moving up on the shimmer of heat on the stone. And on that stone is the most immaculate armor you've ever seen, and a man carrying a very large blade in 2 hands like this on the side of his of his horse. I don't remember if the description actually said that he was carrying the sword, but I pieced it together like that because I don't remember if he had his blade when he rode in, but the way I imagined it, he did, and he was holding it like this, or maybe he was holding it like this. Nevertheless, it's a very well put together description of the majesty of a Shardbearer.
When I read that the first time I saw that, or when I read it, the only thing that went through my mind was, oh my fucking God, they're gonna die. There's just the way that, like, how shards were such a mythical thing, like one can change the tide of war, and not just because of how strong they are, but because of the presence they have. That's a big thing too, right? Like intimidation. Like you see a Shardbearer and you're not living. You run.
Yeah.
Being able to just cut through literally everything and just insta-kill you.
Yeah, I think the first chapter hadn't established just how lethal shards were. They'd established how powerful they were and how well respected they were. But in this chapter, as a reader, I knew that as a reader, have to respect a Shardbearer, but I didn't know why yet. And I don't remember if they had mentioned that a shard blade is an insta-kill.
I think that the next part, when we get into Dalinar's brief introduction where he's protecting King Elokar from the Chasm Fiend on their hunt, I think this is the first time we get to see both the regality of shard plate with the deadliness of a shard blade.
Yes, I do love the buildup of shards, because you have no context for what shards are.
You're like, oh, it's just another magical weapon, right?
Exactly, right? It's just another magical weapon. But he does really build it up smoothly and you learn what the respect for shard blades is
Yeah.
because he makes sure to really hammer it in.
And it's like you're told to respect it, and as a reader, you're kind of like, are you sure about that? Do I really need to respect this? You get the mythicalness behind it, then you get to see it in action a few times, and then you start to think back, then you can start to think forward, and you're like, oh, this is pretty dangerous.
One of the things that kind of goes against building that mythicality around shards is the first chapter. Because in the first chapter, Kaladin faces off against the Shardbearer. We don't learn the outcome of the battle in the first chapter. We learn that he sees the Shardbearer and he squares to be ready to fight. He and his squad mates are all like, we are going to take down the Shardbearer. Because Kaladin's like, imagine, if we took down a Shardbearer, we're going to the Shattered Plains for sure. And then, of course, we enter chapter 2, where we learn that Kaladin is now enslaved. And he is off on a slaving caravan being taken to who knows where in this empty, desolate field near the Unclaimed Hills. And that's such a great transition. I was like, whatever's coming next is either this entire group is dead or we're going to hear this grand victory of our armor plot character. And it's a really nice medium in between because we don't know that Kaladin won the fight, but we do know that something bad happened to him.
Yes.
Because he's like, now he's enslaved. He's got the brand on his, I don't remember if this chapter tells about the brand. I think they do mention. Oh, they do, because like
Yeah,
very
it's
early,
mentioned really
very
early
early
on.
into this chapter, they start mentioning the Shash brand as well, the dangerous glyph.
Danger.
And he is dangerous. Let's not deny it. But back to hating. What's the name of the slaver?
Oh, you mean Tavlakov?
No,
Tavlakov?
No.
Hold on, let's find.
You can't pronounce.
I can't. I just
In my brain, every single time his name came up, it was a blur the way Dalinar hears his wife's name.
Oh my gosh.
It was like I would see that on the page, and my brain would just go.
Are you sure I didn't take like a whiteout to your book?
No, it's so stupid. I think his name shows up somewhere in the second chapter and shows up later as well because he is a recurring minor character, at least between the first two books. But I had to stop. I had to stop reading and sit on that name for at least 5 minutes and be like, okay, consonant, vowel, consonant. How do I don't know if I said that right, but like I was like, how do I, here it is. Consonant, vowel, consonant. So I'm like,
I'm going to use that for my Wordle.
that's a good one.
It might be one letter too long, but...
Tuvlakov is where I arrived. I was like, Tuvlakov is how his name is said. And every single time I read that name, I'd be like, Tuvlakov, and then I'd read an actual English word, and I'd forget that pronunciation.
Yeah.
And then that name would come up again, and I'd be like, Tuvlakov. So it was one of the things that really got to me. I was like, I cannot say this person's name. And this is doing high fantasy novels no favors by playing into the same stereotype of it has unpronounceable names.
Yeah, I can't argue with that one. One thing, though, that I think we should talk about for Kaladin is what were your first impressions for both sides of the story you've seen him so far? You saw him as this very leader, protection-oriented, well, I guess he wasn't a general, but captain. I don't even know if
he wasn't even the captain. He was a squad leader.
He was a squad leader. And you see that part of him. Then, 8 months later, you see and get to read about Kaladin who wants to essentially just off himself because he's failed so many times. And then you get this cute little whimsical Windspren showing up, giving him the most deadly poison known to man, saying, "Won't this make you feel better?"
You're moving on like halfway through the book right now.
I know. I'm speeding up Slave Kaladin just because
I think there's a lot to say about Slave Kaladin.
There's well, at least just with General Kaladin. I'll just call him General Kaladin.
Leader Kaladin.
Sure, leader Kaladin. Prior to, you get to see two extremes of him. Within 50 pages, you see two extremes of this character. Then, as we will talk about more of these books, right? We'll get to talk more about how that plays a role as his character.
Yeah. So, okay.
Impressions on that.
Impressions on Kaladin. I do really like that complete stark transition of like you learn about Kaladin Stormblessed as this glowing knightly figure, and then immediately he is brought down to his knees, right? And honestly, I really like the characterization of Kaladin during his enslavement period, because he starts off as this angry, almost despondent rebel. Like he doesn't want to be enslaved. He wants to run away. And then he arrives at Bridge 4.
Very spiteful,
very angry at his situation. And he refuses to talk about his past. He refuses to talk to the other slaves. You see this complete 180 in his personality after he's enslaved. And then when he arrives at Bridge 4 and he's assigned to Bridge 4 and he realizes the reality of the brutality of Bridge 4 and the bridge runs, and it's really interesting just how like he wants to take a warlike approach to this, but he hates the situation that he's in and he hates the people that he's with. And he comes to that point where he wants to, what is it called? The
Honor's Chasm.
The Honor's Chasm. Yeah, where he wants to just end it all and just be done with it. And this ties into Syl a lot as well. What's Syl's full name? It comes up twice in 2 books.
I'm not going to tell you. I know it comes up twice in 2 books, but I'll purposely not tell you.
Syl Miranda. I don't remember.
Syl Miranda.
It is fascinating to me that in 2,500 pages, that name is fully mentioned only twice.
Yeah, keep that in mind.
I'll keep it in mind. But I do really like Syl's characterization. Actually, I want to talk about Syl and the role of Spren a little bit later as well.
Yeah.
Because in the book, one of the things I really enjoyed the way he built up was the ever-presence of Spren.
The omnipresence.
Yes. So Spren are everywhere.
Insert invincible meme here.
Oh my God. I made a steak. A steak? Spren. Okay.
Spren. We're staying on topic. Spren.
I love Spren.
What are they?
I don't know. Well, I do know.
Do you?
I know a decent bit about what Spren think they are from the second book. But we'll get to the second book because the second book is going to become quite more speculative because I haven't gone on to the third book yet.
Yeah.
But like, Spren were very interesting as this like, I remember reading the first few chapters and like, people were talking about how there are anger Spren and there's anticipation Spren and fear Spren. And a part of me was like, okay, Szeth, San Villano, Truthless of Shindalar, is about to commit one of the biggest crimes in Roshar.
There's no war crimes on Roshar.
But assassinating a king is still a crime, whether or not the Geneva Convention exists or not. I'm pretty sure they realize they don't want their king assassinated.
I'm pretty sure murder is bad.
I think so,
in most places.
I think an honor friend would say murder is bad.
Yeah, probably.
But I was like, okay, so Spren are these things that like feed off of or are attracted to emotion. Why aren't there anticipation Spren at Szeth's foot when he is anticipating his mission to kill Gavilar?
Yeah.
And I still stand by that because so far the books have not given me a solid reason for why there were no anticipation Spren when he was clearly highly anticipatory. Impersonatating. Going to, you look so stupid. You got such a shit-eating grin saying that was not even that funny.
No, okay, it was that. It was funny.
It was funny. It was pretty funny. Nevertheless, I still am lost on why there weren't anticipation Spren there. Spren as a concept, I love. They're these little spirits that are associated with all sorts of things that are always there. And one of the lines in the first book that I really liked was one of the characters thinking about Spren said, "You learn to ignore them."
Yeah.
Right? Which was really fascinating to me. Like, okay, they're always there. You learn to ignore them. But then they take on such a central role in everyone's involvement with the world. Like, if you learn to ignore them, then would you really be concerned about Rotspren on a festering wound? Apparently, yes, because they're the symbol of infection. So you are really concerned about Rotspren on an infection. So that line, like, I always went back to that line in my head of being like, well, then you don't learn to ignore them.
It's like selective awareness.
Yeah.
Your mind kind of picks and chooses what you see at one given time, depending on the situation's importance, right?
Yeah.
Standing there holding your brand new baby son, glory sprint, right? But like, imagine someone, well, glory sprints are pretty rare, but like common things like fear, anxiety, they kind of give away some of those raw emotions that people can have if they're not very good at hiding them. So,
which I thought was a great concept, because it's like, then it's even harder to hide your feelings.
Yeah.
Because if you are feeling an emotion strongly, you are outwardly going to show it. And that came up in one of Shallan's chapter later in the second book, where she was trying to prevent people from knowing that she was in pain. But then she thought, oh, well, what's the point of trying to pretend? The pain sprint have probably given me away anyway, which I thought was a really nice touch.
Or you can just piss yourself and then get really embarrassed. Then you can have like, what's the
Embarrassment sprint? Or humiliation sprint?
There's
I don't
something.
remember what they're called.
Shame sprint.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can have shame sprint if you just like piss yourself. But
If you're ashamed of that, some people might get glory sprint from that.
yeah, well, you can go find those people, right? Just go ask Axes.
Oh, isn't he? He's one of those interludes guys.
Yeah, he's a brief interlude.
One of the things that I remember being so emotional about when I read this was like, obviously, you get into it and you're like, how did Kaladin end up enslaved?
Yeah.
And I don't think it was the very first chapter of Kaladin's enslavement that mentioned this, but a few chapters into it, he like mentions
bits and pieces.
You get bits and pieces, but very early into it, in a couple of chapters, he lets it be known through his thoughts or through the narration that it was High Lord, or it's called High Lord? High Prince.
High Prince, yeah, I guess it depends.
But he's not a High Prince.
Well, usually they just will, I think they call
Bright
people,
Lord.
Yeah, Bright Lord
Was the word I was looking for.
is like the most robust honoraria to
Yeah.
someone.
So in the few chapters into his enslavement, he lets it be known that it was Bright Lord Amaram
Yeah.
that sold him into slavery.
And you're like,
And I
what?
exploded. I was like, it was his own lord. It was his own liege lord that he was fighting so loyally for.
The
that was
honor of that man.
and the chapter is called Honor is Dead,
Honor
which is
is
great.
dead.
I mean, I haven't gone through and read every chapter name again, but
But I'll see what I can do.
I'll see what I can do. It was great. It was great. And then, of course, we are introduced to Shallan Devar. Who, honestly, she shows up, and I'm like, who is this? We're doing it again? We're doing it again. You gave me 2 chapters,
We went through all this with Kaladin, got to know a little bit more about him, then gone.
then gone. But I wasn't mad about that. I was mad about that, but I wasn't mad about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I thought when Shallan comes in, I do like that there's this really interesting juxtaposition because Kaladin's a Dark Eyes and Shallan's a Light Eyes. So we get to see how the world is different in the way race is explored in the world of Roshar. Or at least Alethkar.
At least
Alethkar.
class. You could probably just say class in this case, because if you're a Light Eyes, you have a much higher class standing than a Dark Eyes. Race can be irrelevant in the context of Light Eyes, Dark Eyes.
But the way the thing is, I would argue that in the case of Alethkar, eye color is not a matter of class. It is certainly a matter of race. Eye color is an exploration of race because it is an arbitrary physical characteristic that you may inherit that determines what class you belong to, social class you belong to, and that is race
There
altogether.
are so many pop gen studies that I want to do with the people in Alethkar or people Bright Eyes, Dark Eyes, just to see. You could back calculate when the recreants happened and when Light Eyes became a deal.
I think we should let people know that we are biologists and we think about stuff like this.
Yeah, we think about stuff from that angle. I'm a geneticist. For those of you who are listening, I study turtles, turtle genetics, pretty fun. And yeah, so when I'm reading this kind of stuff, those are like the random blurbs that come into my head, being like, what if you did this? Oh, look at all these new creatures. Look at how many new genomes need to be sequenced. Like just stuff like that. Or how do these rock buds survive high storms? Like why are there different varieties? Like those are the questions that I'm constantly asking as I read. Like, that's cool.
And I am an evolutionary biologist. I study like the evolution of different sponges and just the relationship of different living organisms. And I kind of fall into that mindset myself as well, because I'm like, he has created an entire alien fauna, and if we are to assume, like how on real life we assume that life has single origin and everything evolved from there, then what was the origin of evolution? If I don't care about the human-like species, that's all fantasy stuff, but I really am interested in the ecological and like evolution of all the rock buds and the shell bark and the chasm fiends,
The axe hounds and the
Kremlings and all that
Kremlings.
stuff. It's like wonderful. So being a biologist,
the spren.
well, the spren can fuck off. They're not biological. Being a biologist, being a phylogeneticist and systematist, so taxonomy is part of what I do. I really love the chapters when Shallan is geeking out about how is this thing related to this thing? Because she sees, I don't remember what it was, she sees a white spine at some point, and she tries to draw conclusions about how this particular crustacean is related to another group, and she's like, well, it shares these sort of similarities, but it's different in these ways. And I'm like, yes, girl, this is my...
You are a scholar.
Girl, this is my jam. I love it, and I like that this was in there, because that means that when Brandon Sanderson is creating this mythological ecology, he is at least considering some aspects of evolution while making them. I wouldn't expect a fantasy author to be accurate to how evolution works, but even having a reflection of it in there makes it feel so much like more grounded, more realistic.
I do actually want to touch on that, because that was one reason why I wanted you to read this. Is I don't know where other authors and their review team kind of go to pull from science to make their science fiction or fantasy books. I do know that Brandon Sanderson and his team have a big group of dedicated people when he's trying to pull and create and weave together both fantasy and nonfiction, to do it in a way that is respective to those fields, so that he doesn't make something that is just astronomically bad and factually incorrect. He actually did he didn't retcon it, but with Mistborn, and we'll talk about maybe what you're going to read later, he pulled away from one of the ways that magic system works, because it was getting into eugenics. And he wrote it knowing that that was kind of where that storyline kind of ended up, but he didn't want to change the story because the story's beautiful. And as he was thinking about the next arc of that, he was like, this is the perfect opportunity to change some of that. And you really, though you don't pick up those tones when you read the book, because it's clearly not about that. But when you push a book to its absolute extreme and try to explore every avenue of how the magic can be used, you could end up with that. And I'm really glad that he intentionally swayed away from it, and it works really well with the narrative too. But
yeah, that's nice to know that he is conscious of these kind of things, because I was just thinking from like the biology perspective, but it's really nice to know that there is like a more social thought being put into how these books are being interpreted.
Sometimes that's for the best, sometimes it's not for the best. And I think that as he is, this was written like what, 2010, 2011, somewhere in there?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't remember when the Way of Kings was published, but since the publication of his early series, and now he's been going full-blown Cosmere-related stuff, he's gotten better, much better at not straying too far from the line and from his team, and he'll constantly go back and forth, which is nice. But for Stormlight Archive purposes, he really does set up the ecology in the world of Roshar really well. I did really appreciate that, and appreciate more and more as I look into his tabletop RPG and all the art and lore surrounding this planet. The most well thought out planet there is in the Cosmere
Is Roshar.
Actually, is Roshar, yes.
So I have no familiarity with the Cosmere outside of Roshar.
Good, keep it that way for now.
And I honestly kind of do want to keep it that way. Like, I went into the Cosmere knowing that it is a system of multiple planets that are in the same universe that have no or little, well, have some overlapping incidents with amongst them. Part of me...
But when you hear that, you think, oh, this is just another sci-fi Star Wars thing, right? You think of this interconnected universe with interconnected planets, and you don't really take into... Well, I personally, I didn't know that going into the first couple books of the Cosmere, or of the Stormlight Archive, But there are lots of little bits and pieces of knowledge that you have already read and will continue to read that allude to other things, which is really cool.
Huh. Okay. I don't know how I feel about that just now. Okay. Because I'm like, I like that, but also I don't know if I like that.
They don't contribute per se to this story, but they have implications for other stories.
Okay.
Implications not as in like if you have book series A and book series B, that what happens in A is directly impacting B. It's more like book series A has slices of things related to book story B, and then in some hypothetical book story C, you might see the consequences of said thing.
Okay. That is very complex.
It is.
And I don't know if I'll be able to keep track of that.
No, and you're not supposed to, right?
Yeah. One of the things, because you had mentioned this to me earlier as well, and one of the things that I like kind of really enjoyed in the way these books are set up, chapters in the first part of the book have a really interesting thing where they have these death rattles just before the chapter begins. And while the death rattles felt like they were grounded in the world itself, every subsequent part of the book, so part 2, does not do death rattles. It has something else entirely. And as I was reading those pre-sentences on part 2, I was like, this feels like a conversation in letters between two people. And I still have no idea who those letters are written between, but they seem to have either great implication for what's happening on Roshar or potentially implications for what's happening in the Cosmere. I remember having this feeling of like, I wonder if this is supposed to be just about Roshar or a grander scale than that. Don't know for sure. But I did enjoy those thoroughly because they do a great job of building mystery and intrigue.
I have seen the end, and I have heard it named The Night of Sorrows, The True Desolation, The Everstorm.
Oh, shit. Now I know what the Everstorm is. That's like chapter
5.
Chapter
first
5.
Book.
That's like one of the earlier death rattles.
Yeah.
So we were talking
Example
about
A.
Shallan. So we were talking
about Shallan. This is ironically a Shallan chapter.
Yeah. That's why I saw the symbol on the top of it and I was like, that's a Shallan chapter.
When I first saw this, I had no idea what I was looking at.
I still don't think I know what I'm looking at.
I do know what it's supposed to be resembling, but I didn't really piece that together for a while. I guess you can look at it, but...
Yeah, no, I'll look at it later. But yeah.
But Shallan.
Shallan.
Backcountry girl. Has some things that she likes. She's really good at drawing. She has this fascination with Jasna.
I did call her Jasna for a couple of chapters.
Yeah.
And then I spoke to you and you were like, oh
Yasna.
yeah, Yasna.
Or Yasna.
I've been saying Yasna.
Yeah, Yasna. Same thing. It just is the soft J.
Yes, exactly.
The soft
well,
yay.
It's a ya.
Yeah.
I guess you could call it a soft J because there's no other way to make a soft J. Just because the J is the soft G sound.
It's more of like it's like a Y.
Yeah. So
Y-U,
nevertheless, like I said, the names in this book piss me off. So if the something that is spelled as Jasna can be pronounced as Yasna, then and I do this while I'm reading, I will often just pronounce Shallan's name as Shaylin. In my head, I'll be like, Shaylin Daver.
What about the country that
Devar.
starts with the letter J?
Oh yeah, I was calling it Jakaved for a very long time. And then you told me that pretty much all nouns that start with a J are ya. So I was like, oh, so I guess it's Jakaved. Which, whatever. That switch was easy enough to make in my head, and I was like, okay, so it's not. And honestly, Jakaved is harder to say than Yakaved.
Kind of is.
So I prefer Jakaved over Jakaved.
Is the thing to just say semantics? Is that what it is, or how do you know what's semantics?
Semantics is like how you use a word. So like,
no, it's not semantics.
It's not semantics. It's pronunciation.
Oh, pronunciation.
Pronunciations differ is a thing that people in my middle school used to say when people would mispronounce a word. They would mispronounce something, and there is such a thing as mispronouncing a word. They would mispronounce a word, and you'd correct them, and they'd be like, "Oh, pronunciations differ." because pronunciation is also wrong. It's
Yeah,
pronunciation.
pronunciation.
But it was something that was a very common thing for an obnoxious middle
So
schoolers.
you want to start
say me.
talking about more names that you don't like, that I know you don't like, or you want to keep talking about Shalon?
I think we'll get to those names when we get to them.
Okay.
But Shalon was interesting because she started off and I was like, who is this girl? She's on a boat. She's talking to pirates. They weren't pirates. They were just sailors. But I was like, she's talking to pirates. And she seemed fun. I liked her energy. She was funny. And then
So naive.
her naivete didn't really come forward in her first chapter. It slowly built. But like, I loved how we got to see her privilege because she arrives at Carbranth. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Carbranth.
Carbranth.
And what's the first thing she says she's doing when she's at Carbranth? Well,
I don't remember.
main story arc, just main story arc with Shalon. Why'd she go to Carbranth?
Oh, she went to Carbranth to meet with the king's sister. King's sister. To become...
Selfishly.
Well, that's the last line of the chapter. I wasn't interested. Hold on. I wasn't interested in in Shalon until that very last line of the chapter.
Really?
Because I read through the entire chapter of Shalon, and she's like,
Yeah.
I am this rich woman who is going to go see the king's sister and ask her to be her ward.
Woohoo!
And she goes to Carbranth. She goes to the... What was the name of the building?
The mausoleum? No. Mausoleum?
No, it wasn't called the mausoleum.
It's something aleum.
The planarium. That wasn't that what it's called?
I'll find it. You keep talking.
Well, she goes to that hi-fi library.
The top of Carbranth.
Yes, the top of Carbranth. And I did love how Carbranth was described as the city of bells because I was playing Silk Song at the same time. And bells have... I'm not going to spoil anything because I know you haven't played Silk Song yet. But bells have a large motif in that game as well. So I was like, wow, bells left and right. And then she makes it to that big library at the top of Carbranth. And what does she do? She goes, like, I don't remember the exact gesture, but she raises out one of her hands to be like, help me. I am a helpless, light-eyed woman who deserves you to wait on me in every waking moment. And then the master servants show up and they're like, brightness, let us guide you. Let us walk. Let us kiss the floor you tread. So it was really cool coming out of that chapter where Kaladin is a slave to where Shalon is pampered, even though she is relatively low ranking as a Light Eyes, but as a Light Eyes, she still
is the daughter of a landlord in
Exactly.
the middle of Yakobed. So
she's still leagues above the kind of standard that an enslaved person in Elethkar could hope to ever have. Even a free Dark Eyes probably can never hope to have the standard that she's living by, which is excellent transition, excellent juxtaposition. And I thought she's such a brat. I don't like her. And then she goes and she talks to Yasna. I did find it so funny because we're both in grad school. We're both doing our PhD. And she goes to Yasna to be accepted as her ward. And Yasna tests her. And then when she doesn't like Shalon writes a little note of like, you need to listen to my life story. You need to be like, well, my mother died when I was little. My stepmother had no interest in tutoring me. My tutors would run away after every month. I had to teach myself everything. And I was like, she's just writing a letter, like, what's it called? A personal letter.
like a personal statement.
A personal statement for applying to grad school. Because when I wrote my personal statement when I was applying to grad school, that was my entire personal statement. Shalon's personal statement was entirely, I had to learn all of this on my own because there was nobody to teach me. And I never had formal education in evolution, and I was like, I'm going to go to grad school to be an evolutionary biologist. So I wrote an entire personal statement of like, oh yeah, my college didn't teach any evolutionary courses, and my high school didn't teach any evolutionary courses, and I learned everything on the internet, and Wikipedia was my best friend. And that was my entire personal statement. And I was reading through that, I was like, I relate so hard to Shalon. She's applying to be a PhD student right now. And then I was
basically,
I honestly, can I brag for a moment?
Sure.
My personal statement was a work of art.
You've told me that it's a work of art.
Because I loved it.
I don't really remember my personal statement, if that says very much about it.
It probably does, because what happens to a personal statement, they barely get read.
Yeah, barely.
But they do get read. And I did like that Yasna looked at her personal statement and said, okay, your personal statement puts you above your SAT scores. Mm-hmm. So now I will consider you for a trainee position as my ward.
Conclave.
The Conclave. Why did I say planarium?
I don't know why it's called the Conclave. I didn't remember it as being the Conclave, if I'm being honest. It reminds me of a different book where they had a conclave event, not an actual place. So,
Nevertheless,
Yeah.
she makes it to the Conclave and is a spoiled brat. And then we also get our first glimpse of soul casting in the first introduction to the Conclave, because Yasna, wearing her beautiful Fabrial, am I saying that right?
Yeah, I pronounce it Fabrial, but
I think Fabrial makes more sense.
it just rolls off the English tongue a little bit better.
Fabrial, whatever.
Fabrial.
Yes. So then she, wearing that beautiful piece of jewelry, touches a stone and turns
Stares
it
at
into
the rock
smoke.
and goes, "It's Britney, bitch."
It's Britney, bitch.
And then it
and then
evaporates.
she sings toxic and turns it into toxic fumes because
Yeah.
it turns into smoke,
turns into smoke.
which was a really, really cool way to introduce soul casting.
Yeah.
I did really appreciate that there was a line in the book that said soul casting is a soul caster is both the name of the Fabrial and the person who uses the Fabrial.
Yep.
Because that line almost exactly in those words appears again in the second book.
Which is good because when you're introducing a lot of characters, a lot
Yes.
of motifs, theme, just everything that's going on, especially when you're also introducing magic.
Yes.
I'm of the person and of the opinion where if you reintroduce something a couple times, if it's been spaced out, I'm happy with it.
I think it's really fine because I binge read the first two books, but they came out years apart. So
Yeah.
it makes complete sense that there was actual repetition of this. But because I read both of these books in the span of less than 2 months,
Yeah.
I was like, I know this. Don't tell me this again. Jokingly, of course. Not truly hating on the fact that two books came out years apart. Did you know that? Books come out years apart. They
You're
don't
telling
actually
me
come
I
out.
can't just read all 5 back to back to back?
It turns out books aren't Netflix series and they don't all drop at the same time.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. I could never read a book.
I don't think I've ever read a book.
Wow.
I can't read.
Wow. Imagine we're here in grad school then, right?
I know, right? But I thought Yasna was a really fun character. Because she was commanding, she was powerful, she was scary, and Shallan was so timid next to her. And then at the very end of that chapter, I was like, okay, I like Shallan now.
Yeah.
Because she was like, I'm going to get
She
Yasna
gives you
to
the
trust
full
me.
game plan.
I'm going to get Yasna to trust me. I'm going to get her soulcaster alone, and I'm going to steal it. And that's the last. Because I just recently read the book, so I remember it in this much detail. But that's the last line of the chapter, and I was like, "Oh hell yeah, I love this. That's the game plan, all right. You don't want to be a scholar, you want to steal."
I was the exact opposite. I read Shallan's story. I had the exact same first impressions. I'm like, what? Like, why are we following this girl? Okay, cool. I see Yasna's last name resembles. Actually, at that point, we hadn't. I don't remember where the Dalinar chapter happens. I think Dalinar has a chapter with the Chasm Fiend with Elkar.
That's part 2.
Oh, it's no. It's really early.
This thing of Yasna, of Shallan revealing her plan to steal the soulcaster is in part 1, and chapter 1 of part 2 is the Dalinar chapter.
It was the prologue with Zeth. They mentioned
King Gavilar Colin.
And I recognized Colin and then Yasna's last name as both the same, and I went, are they the same people? Because I didn't quite, at that point, not enough time had passed for me to separate the two names. I just recognized the last name. I'm like, wait, that person's dead. So then I had to do one of those like quick flip back, quick flip forward.
There was also this, like, it was a bit confusing for me at the beginning as well, because it said that she was the king's sister.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, the king who's dead? And because they had not mentioned Elkar yet.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what was being talked about. Was this Gavilar's sister? Was this, whose sister was this? But it didn't really.
And then you get Navani being thrown into the mix when her name just starts being rattled off left and right.
Yeah, Navani I think of as a more later character. Like she shows up relatively later. I don't remember if she shows up in the first book or the second book.
It's a lot after the development of Dalinar, the war camps, Kaladin, his bridge runs, as he's working on Bridge 4. Shallan and her mastery of the arts while simultaneously trying to steal the Soulcaster, and her relationship with Capsule.
Capsule. What an interesting character. I really liked Capsule, to be honest with you. I was reading that. I think I texted you this while I was reading that. I was reading through that.
She wants to fuck a priest.
Yeah, Shallan's gonna fuck a priest. I was like,
Being the Vorin woman she is, she could never.
being the modest, worn woman who always wears her safe hand in the sleeve. How could she ever fuck an ardent, right? I really wanted her to. I wanted her to be like, girl, cut loose, fuck a priest.
If she didn't have this important mission in front of her.
Who cares? Fuck a priest while you're on an important mission.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta, have fun. But also, it was really funny because she was like, "Let me describe this hot priest to you.
Oh yeah.
He's bald, but so sexy,
But so sexy.
and he's got this weird tattoo. Did she know about that tattoo? No, I think she found out about the tattoo after he died.
Yeah, the triangles.
Yeah, I think she found out about that after he died.
Yeah, I think it was a death thing.
It was really cute though because he was like, "I brought you bread and I brought you jam," and then they would eat bread and jam, and it was a really cute tradition until you learned what that really was happening.
The entire time.
The entire time. I didn't really put that together.
I didn't either. It took
until
a long time.
until like the story literally told me that was happening. That was like a moment where the plot had to be kind of explained to me. Where
It
I
was like, oh, like it's just for me when I was catching what was happening, I was like, there's no way he's been doing this entire time. And then, sure enough, then you get to hear a little bit of Yasna's inner monologue, or actually it was Shallan's inner monologue of how Yasna had been eating the bread. Was she soul casting the jelly or soul casting the bread?
We'll get to that.
Yeah, but that when that was
I
explained,
want to hold off on that.
it made it clear as day, and I went, oh my gosh, this has been a huge thing. Yasna trying to prevent her own death
Yeah,
constantly.
yeah, it was kind of crazy. I really liked the development of Yasna as well. Her being built as this powerful soulcaster, this heretic, this non-believer, and how like there was a very interesting discussion around religion whenever she was around. And Taravangian had this conversation. Taravangian, the king of Kharbranth, had this discussion with her about why she doesn't believe in the Almighty. And it was really fun to hear Shallan's perspective on that because she wasn't comparing the merits of their arguments, but rather she was comparing how Taravangian is not a good debater, right? She was listening because she also is a woman of faith. She does believe in the religion, and she doesn't want Yasna's heresy or atheism to rub off on her. So when Taravangian is having this discussion with Yasna about belief and disbelief, Shallan is listening, siding with Taravangian and being like, Taravangian, you have the worst fucking arguments. If I was debating Yasna, I'd have better things to say.
Do you think he was having a good day?
Ha! He was
Or do you think
stupid
he
on
was
that
having
day.
a bad day? He was stupid on that day. He failed many tests.
He was probably not stupid. I think he was average on that day.
Well, they only let him out if he's above a certain level.
Yeah, he was average at least, which we didn't know back then.
No, we didn't.
Which made me like, I
want to
very...
go back and compare the different conversations Taravangian has had prior to us knowing about his condition, and seeing how the arguments whenever he's having a conversation with someone pile up. Because some of them might be a little bit stronger, some of them might be a little bit weaker, or some of them might be much more emotional than others. Some might be very calloused. So
I feel like as much as I remember of his discussion with Yasna about religion, it was very emotionally driven.
yeah,
And it was very much, at least if he wasn't stupid that day, he was at least average.
yeah. Where do you think his average sits? Above average? Exactly average?
I think possibly, because it was the genius that designed the test of judging his level of competence. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming that whatever he decided was average was...
He didn't do that on the day.
Possibly.
He did that on another high day.
Possibly. I don't remember the details of that. I did, coming back to Yasna and Shallan, I liked how their pacing was very different from Kaladin's pacing, because Kaladin's pacing was dread,
Go,
war, fighting,
yeah.
death, sadness, desolation,
Depression.
just all of that. And then Shallan's was like, I'm going to take a bath.
The contrast. And you get Syl floating around being like, it's okay.
I did
it's
really
fine.
enjoy Syl. Syl is so funny.
This hat is a hat powered by sadness.
Syl is so funny. I did like her childlike energy next to Kaladin's absolute depression. And then, of course, there's a scene where she brings him the poisonous leaf, and Kaladin's like, actually, I don't want to die. Because your poisonous leaf has given me hope.
It is so, when I read that, I think I cried a little bit, just being like, she brought him his means of salvation in that moment. And rather than taking it as an opportunity to kill or to kill himself, he just gives it away and is like, I need to do better.
Mm-hmm. He makes his resolve to protect Bridge 4.
Yeah. Well, no.
That happens very much when he throws the leaf away.
I think doesn't she bring back because he lost some that he had while he was on the caravan. And then Syl was kind of dancing around in the sky, not really competent. Then at what point did she bring that back to him? Was it when he was standing on Honor's Chasm, she brought it back?
So she had been missing for a few days, or at least a day or two.
She's like, I'll be back. Is that what
she didn't
said?
I don't remember if she even said anything to Kaladin, but Kaladin just knew that she was gone, and not having her around also compounded his depression. So he was like, I'm going to go jump off a cliff. And then while he was contemplating jumping off a cliff, Syl came back huffing and puffing, carrying a single dried leaf. And she's like, damn, those things are heavy. And she gives him the leaf. And her argument is so innocent. I did love when they portrayed her innocence like that, because she was quite childlike. She was like, well, when you had this leaf in the caravan, the slaver caravan, you're happy, or you are hopeful. So I thought maybe bringing you this leaf will make you hopeful again. And so he was thinking a lot about Bridge 4 at the time, and then contemplating the leaf, contemplating hope, he dumped the leaf and said that he will protect Bridge 4.
Yeah.
I believe those are the exact last words of that chapter. I have a lot of like snapshot memories of the last few words or the first few words of chapters, because that's how my memory works.
And I think that for those important like things, I think they, for the most part, tend to line up at the end of chapters, because you remember quite a bit about the first, quite a bit about the end, just not a lot of the meat in the middle, unless if you're really trying to annotate. Yeah,
and that's sort of like how you should be doing writing. Like the ending should be something that keeps you wanting to read more. If it ended with Kaladin being like, and I did a bridge run and it was bad, and I wouldn't be super interested in reading the next chapter if it didn't tug me to want to continue reading. So the last lines of a chapter should really be, especially the introductory chapters where we're still learning who these characters are, need to make us compelled to want to read. And I think they did a really good job in that one. And then there's Adolin and Dalinar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. Was it from the perspective of Adolin or
It was
Dalinar?
from the perspective of Dalinar. The first time you are introduced to the Colin, the House Colin chapters, which usually alternate between Dalinar and Adolin within the same chapter.
Oh yeah, so part 2 was Dalinar, Kaladin, and Adolin.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the perspectives in part 2. Which was a kind of so funny.
No Shallan.
It was so funny because I read through part 1 being like, I started part 1 like, oh, I don't like Shallan. I ended part 1 and started part 2 after the interludes. I read part 2 and I was like, no Shallan? I want to read about Shallan.
Me, I was like, finally, that bitch is gone.
No,
I can read about my boy.
I was like, I want to follow Shallan. She's more interesting as a thief who is not who's like an incapable thief than Kaladin as a mighty soldier who's been struck down. And of course, I didn't know who Dalinar and Adolin were at this point. I think they hadn't been mentioned at all up till this point. And then we learn more about who these high princes and sons of high princes are. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think part 2 of the entire book is kind of lost on me.
I can't remember much about part 2. I don't know when you start getting introduced to Dalinar's episodes and visions.
I think that is very much in this. It starts right here because Dalinar starts off being kind of embarrassed of his visions and stuff, and Navani shows up and he freaks out. He's like, holy shit, she's here. Holy shit, the hottest woman I've ever met is here, and she's my brother's widow.
And I think, I'm surprised that you didn't like part 2 as much as you say you didn't, because you start to get introduced into the high prince politics from a very skewed perspective of a man who has now fallen out of his prime, is being chastised for falling out of his prime, and now you get the addition of these visions, which drive it even further into the drain.
I think I really did like part 2. It's just that part 2 kind of didn't leave any individual impressions on me. Like in part 1, I'm like telling you like, oh, I remember the last lines of this
Yeah.
chapter. I remember the first lines of this chapter. I remember a single line here. I think part 1 really had those defining moments. And part 2, I think we had come to a point in this book where those moments weren't as profound anymore, probably because I was into the book now, right? So I didn't need to be capturing memories from the book the way Shallan does.
Snap.
Snap a memory. And then it was really interesting seeing this back and forth between Adolin being this spoiled prince and Dalinar being this super rigid general and Navani being this super... I don't even know what she was being.
Seductive.
I guess she was being seductive, right? She was coy, she was teasing, and she was inappropriate, to say the least. Which I loved about her. She was a queen. And I think it was in part 2 that Dalinar was so stressed out about his
Unite them.
visions and everything that I think he wanted to he'd already like decided to make the decision to abdicate to Adolin.
I don't think he does that immediately, but I think that thought process is something that is cycling in his mind, but we as the readers are not quite aware of yet until Adolin confronts him and is like, you are losing your mind, because of course, Adolin is not in the loop here. We as readers are like, we know Dalinar is experiencing something. We don't necessarily know where these are coming from, but Adolin is of course not privy to that information and is really frustrated because Adolin, the fire, hot-headed youth who wants to not only protect his name but to protect his dad and all of these things, gets so mad at the one person he's trying to essentially save. And I think that I really enjoyed this conflict and strife between Adolin and his dad during these parts of the books, because you get two really stark contrasts where someone who is dead set on trying to understand what's going on to him because he knows it's real. Then you get another person trying to meet him saying, trust me, I don't necessarily believe you, but I want to believe you. But just
It's like, I don't think you're a liar. I just don't think what you're saying is correct.
I don't think you're a liar, but I don't think you're a truther.
I don't think you're a truther. Of course.
And then Renarin is just kind of stuck in the middle.
Oh, I've been calling him Renarin.
That's fine. I just call him Renarin.
That's too many long vowels for me. Nevertheless. Renarin is fun in the beginning because he's just like this awkward side character who kind of only really exists to give Adolin someone to have to talk to.
Yeah.
But there's a moment in the Chasm Fiend Hunt chapter, which I believe is the first of Dalinar's chapter.
Yes.
Where Dalinar and Elhokar are both dressed up in the shard plate, and they climb on top of a pillar on the plateau, and then they look out towards the origin, and Elhokar is saying some Elhokari bullshit, and Dalinar is
I'm the king. Everyone has to think I'm the king. I wear my gold shard plate.
Oh yeah, his shard plate is gold. I completely forgot about that. But Dalinar is ruminating over his visions, and that's the first time I believe, because this is one of my memories from part 2 actually, where they're standing on the pillar and they're looking eastward, and Dalinar has that moment where he remembers the words "unite them."
Yep.
And that was like really cool. I was like, okay, Dalinar is fun, and Dalinar is really fun. Dalinar is probably one of my favorite characters just because he's really interesting.
Yeah,
he's a piece of shit, but he's really interesting. Like, I must follow the orders. What was it called? The codes. I must follow the codes. I listened to this book being read to me, which is conveniently called The Way of Kings. He's reading the book I'm reading, except he's not allowed to read. Yeah,
we're breaking all.
We're breaking all Vorin convention by being men who read. We need to get.
Where's the female subtext? Where do I get to hear them slandering our boys?
Which is a really fun detail.
Yeah, men. War, fighting, kind of finances, whatever.
It's like those memes.
Women, history, like
art, culture,
everything related to knowledge,
Yeah.
basically.
It's
And of
like-
course, the Ardents kind of get mixed in
It's
there
like
too, but-
it's like those memes where it's like men used to go to war.
yeah, exactly.
But also, it's funny that there's also a separation of foreign food for men and women. So men
Yeah.
have spicy
Cuisine
umami
stuff
food,
was really interesting to me.
and women have to eat sweet things.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Ugh. Imagine being stuck only eating sweet food.
I don't know if I could do it.
I wouldn't be able to do it too. I'd get sick of it.
Yeah, it would be kind
Like
of
sweet
bad.
is great, but I crave the spice.
Mother, I crave spice.
I crave violence.
Like rock stew.
Yes, like rock stew. You made me
I did.
some horn eater stew the other day.
Yeah,
and
it
it
was-
was delicious.
It was pretty good.
I really enjoyed it. That was wonderful. I do
I
really like
even
rock.
used Kremlings.
You did use Kremlings. We had shrimp
Yeah.
in there. It was so good.
Yeah, it
You need to
was.
give me the recipe on that.
I don't remember it. I just kind of like threw 3 recipes together and said, "Let's see how this comes out. The longer I boil it, the better." According to Rock. I
And it
didn't have to call you an airsick lowlander for thinking it was too spicy, so that's good.
It was delicious.
That's really good.
It was delicious. I really enjoyed it. I'm really glad that you made it. And then we come back to Kaladin, I guess. Was there more to say about Dalinar in the first book?
There was I guess we could talk about Dalinar. Like there's 3 parts of the book. You have the compressed front end where you're learning about the characters and how they get to the Shattered Plains and what they're doing on the Shattered Plains. Then you have the middle part, which is the development of all of the character arcs on the Shattered Plains, or in Shallan's case, in Kharbranth. Then you get the Philosophy 101 lesson.
Oh yeah, that was a great
Yeah.
chapter.
We should actually circle back to that. Then the end, you get the compressed everything is happening. And right now I think we're about to just talk about the big chunk in the middle where things are moving. We don't know how they're moving, but they are. Dalinar's story, like you were saying, really doesn't change. He's experiencing these visions. He has Navani start to transcribe some of these. They realize he's speaking a new language, or not just a new language. He's speaking
Dawn Chant.
Dawn Chant, and they're able to start translating the Dawn Chant because he's speaking in a very different. He's
speaking both Dawn Chant, but he speaks the words in Dawn Chant, but he remembers those memories in Alethi.
in Alethi, so they can translate it. So they're translating the Dawn Chant, which is the first time ever. You're having this massive collaborative event to trying to translate more of the Dawn Chant. That's all spurred on by this dude who's having visions. And not only that, everyone is simultaneously slandering him for having these visions. And then all of a sudden being like, oh, maybe he is doing something, but screw him because he's having visions, and that's bad. Having visions is of the Voidbringers.
Is of the Voidbringers.
No one should see the future. No one should see the future. And this dude who claims that he's seeing the future, well, not the future.
He's seeing the past.
He is seeing the past. He even knows he's seeing the past, but seeing out of your frame of reference is not good. And they make that very clear. The Ardentia is, I think there's been a little bit of information about the Ardentia and like what they've been doing.
There's a lot of talk about the history of, because there's a moment where Adolin, concerned about Dalinar's vision, goes and talks to an Ardent, and in that moment we learn
Kadash.
about. Maybe I don't
Was it
remember.
Kadash? Kadash is one of the ones that
It's one of the important ones in Dalinar's.
Yeah, it's probably Kadash then.
Probably the name, because he only showed up for that one scene in between these 2 books.
Yeah.
So I don't remember.
There's a character in this book that I want to talk to you about. He's an Ardent, but I want to talk to you about.
Zahel.
Huh?
Zahel.
Yeah.
Zahel. However you say it.
I think I pronounced it
Zahel.
Zale.
I don't even
I don't know his Vasher.
Yep. Nevertheless, we'll come to that guy. What was I saying? There's a lot of really fun lore in part 2. Now that I'm really back to thinking about it, because you learn a
This is the
lot
first time
more.
you get to experience the visions.
You experience the visions. You learn about the history of Vorin religion. You learn about the what was the movement for the Ardents to take over called?
Oh, I don't remember it. But basically,
Hierocracy?
The hierocracy.
Yeah, so you learn about the hierocracy and to Dalinar's visions and general discussion about the whole situation. You learn about the Recreants. You learn about the Knights Radiant abandoning their posts. You learn about those shadow figures that are not Voidbringers, and you see how the Knights Radiant were actually Surge Binders and they could do all these interesting things. And you as a reader know that the Knights Radiant had the ability to do these things because you've seen Zeth doing them. So you know that these abilities exist. And to some degree, they've been mentioned in the prelude as well. So if you remember the prelude, you can kind of make those connections.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is how there's a differentiation between how the Knights Radiant could use shards versus how shard bearers in the present day can use shards, because shard bearers cannot dismiss their armor,
They can't.
but they can dismiss their sword. And we learned this later in that is a secondary thing. But the Knights Radiant could, it appears, dismiss their armor just the same, because in one of Dalinar's visions,
Was it the helmet
the
scene?
helms would keep
Yeah.
vanishing and coming back, and he would not see them. He wouldn't see them taking them off and putting them back on. So that implies to the reader that just like how shard blade owners can summon a blade, the Knights Radiant could have done that with their shard plate as well, which is really cool. That all that development in part 2 is really, really nice. And seeing the other thing that's happening in part 2 is you're learning of Kaladin's development as a leader. He's taking them down to the chasm runs, and he's like starting to teach them how to use the spears. And
Everybody was kung fu fighting.
he does the big blunder,
The big blunder.
the big blunder,
The big blunder.
where he tells them to carry the bridge on the side,
Oh, yeah.
and that throws off the Parshendi assault,
And then-
more soldiers end up dying
Yep.
than if bridgemen had died.
And
So-
then what does that lead to?
That leads to a really
Yeah,
cool outcome. I can't believe we
yeah.
almost glanced over that.
Yeah, I would have forgotten it.
Him being strung up in the high storm and experiencing the face of the Stormfather.
The wrath. The wrath.
Stormfather says something to him in that moment, doesn't
He
he?
does. You keep
I
talking.
don't
I can
remember.
find it. It's not. I don't think it's super important. Well, anything the Stormfather
He calls
says.
him Child of Honor, didn't
He
he?
does say Child of Honor.
Yeah.
I'll find it. You keep going.
Which is really cool.
Anything that Honor says is incredibly important.
Which is really cool. But I want to move on from that.
Is it in part 3? Dying?
Don't remember.
450. Anyway.
Because right now for book 1, I'm going off of vibes.
Yeah, that's what we should be doing.
Because, okay, so all of this is really cool, and then we get to Dalinar's idiocy. Dalinar trusting
Sadius.
Sadius and going on a
Yeah.
bridge run with him.
We skipped a lot of the politics, but yeah.
I mean, the politics is kind of scattered all over the place. It's kind of hard to discuss it in a 2-hour session, which we are running out of time for. But Dalinar trusting Sadius to go on that run, I was like, something is amiss. I don't trust this weasel of a man. Because there were really cool chapters. There were really cool moments where you saw that the two still collaborated in protecting and defending Elhokar, which was like, they hate each other, but they love Elhokar. And they are putting their differences aside for his sake until Sadius's truth came out.
The type of love that Dalinar shows Elhokar is one of like the toughen up, but I love you because you're like my son. For Sadius, I feel like it's a slightly different kind of love, because for Sadius, I'm not going to spoil too much of what's happened in the past, but you can tell that there's this very different kind of love for Gavilar, Elhokar, that manifests itself through Gavilar, of course, and to me, it's less of like an actual love and more of like a respect for the throne, what they've built, having a unified, if you even really want to call it that at this point, Alethkar.
The Tower.
The Tower. Why are we there? Well, I guess we are talking about Sadius and Dalinar. Where is it?
I don't remember.
There's a lot of flashbacks. Did Cal get strung up, and that's why we're having flashbacks?
I didn't really love the flashbacks, to be honest with you. Well, I did. I loved them. They were really good, but I also hated them because they would just come up when in the middle of something that I was interested in. What's up?
Do you remember what Syl did when he was strung up? She stood in front of him and tried to protect him from the storm.
Oh, did she really?
Yeah.
That slipped my mind. I remember he held on to a sphere and he was like really, I think Teft or Rock or someone gave it to him because they were like, this is good luck or something. And he held on to that sphere for dear life, and then he saw the Stormfather's face.
This is after as I'm just scrolling back through it now.
Scrolling?
I found
You're
after.
scrolling through a book?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's like Reddit, just choo, choo, choo.
the escape of Bridge 4 and saving Dalinar is a really cool moment. Because when they leave Bridge 4 behind and Kaladin's like, we're free. I was like, hell yeah, they're free. That's awesome. He outwitted them. After all the struggle and strife, all he had to do was like, hey, listen, my guys are super disciplined. We'll come back. You trust us.
You trust us.
And then they're like, no, we won't.
Yep.
And then going back to save Dalinar, because obviously he was going to go back to save Dalinar, right? To be honest with you, I wasn't sure about that. Because when Dalinar and Adolin were trapped on the tower, part of me was like, they have to have plot armor, right? They have to have plot armor. They do have plot armor, but they have to have plot armor, right? And then Kaladin making the decision to go back and rescue them, I was like, I knew it would happen. Like, it was so obvious that that's how the story has to go after Kaladin had stayed behind on the plateau to see Dalinar being slaughtered over there.
Yeah.
But it happening was like a hell yeah moment for us. Like, yes, go save Dalinar. And then he did. And then it was awesome. And then Dalinar came back and then the trade that they did.
Yeah, the trade.
The trade.
Let me go back and I'll inject a little bit of my thought process as I was reading that same exact thing. The most impactful thing that Kaladin, like in my head, I just knew that he was going to go back. Just he can't not, right? But as I was reading it, I can't. I'm trying to find the words, but I think he says something along the lines of like "bridge up" or something. And right as he says that, I was like, "Yes, he's gonna do it. He's going back." And
Exactly.
Then, as they're doing that, of course, you get Kaladin saying, "I'll protect those who cannot protect themselves."
Oh shit! Yes, he does say the words.
Yeah, he says the words.
Yeah.
And in doing so, I want to read something to you, but I'll have to find it because it's something that the Parshendi do in response to him saying, in response to him doing that.
I don't remember I don't know if I remember the exact reaction.
Yeah, see, hold on.
Because I will.
Oh, you are going to retreat, Kaladin says exacerbated to Adolin. Kaladin
Yeah, he gives Adolin an order.
And then that
Adolin
sets up
pisses
the
off.
entire interactions that they have in Words of Radiance.
Yeah.
Bridge Boy.
Bridge Boy. Because he encounters Adolin helping one of the prostitutes in Thaddeus's camp, being kind of honorable towards her. And that really gives sets his opinion of Adolin at the moment.
Yeah. I found it. I will protect those who cannot protect themselves. And then this is like quite literally, I didn't even notice this the first time. I was just so hyped by what he was doing. I didn't even realize it says the second ideal of the Knights Radiant.
Oh, you didn't? That caught me immediately.
Well, since like when I read it, when I listened to it the second time, I probably acknowledged it, but I wasn't reading it.
It didn't sink in.
I didn't see the words. The first time I read it, I had no idea what the fuck that meant. I didn't have anyone guiding me. I didn't have anyone to talk to. I was just going.
Yeah.
When I read it, of course, the third time, I just glanced over it because I'm like, oh yeah, of course, right?
The first ideal he was told by Teft.
He was told the first ideal by Teft. Following this, after you speak the words, there's a moment where you kind of get surged with power. You see that in the second book. Regardless of whether or not you have access to Stormlight, you just, for a brief moment, have access to Stormlight. Has to probably do, I really don't know, but it's connection based. But let's see here. Oh, I'm looking for it. Nearby, some of the Parshendi fled, though others stepped up, raising weapons and challenge. That's not the line. There's another one where you get a perspective of the singers or the what are they called? The Parshendi, the listeners, saying something in their own language while Kaladin's fighting. And it's kind of it's not super important. It's just kind of like one of those, oh, that's neat if you know what's going on. Well, it's not super important.
We can come back to it.
We'll come back to it because there's no point in me hanging us up here. But of course, what's the price of a life?
What's the price of a shard blade?
Well, they're both priceless, so.
There's both priceless. So when you make a trade between one shard blade and 2,000, was it?
Yeah, I think he said, about.
About 2,000 plus people.
That's a
It
bargain.
was a bargain for Dalinar, which I thought that was a really fun chapter. And I was so hype around the time when we got to that part of that book. I was like, this is so fun. And he trades his shard blade to Sadeas.
And
He
then
should have
Sadeas-
killed Sadeas.
Sadeas just crashing out, not computing and understanding like why Dalinar was so set on this deal.
Yeah.
You just have him just like trying to scream at him, telling him he's so dumb and this is going to be remembered as the worst deal in history. Flash forward to go forward to the end of the book and man. Was he right or was he right?
Who's to say? Nevertheless, it was a really cool scene, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that you read that scene to me at one point.
Yeah, that was fun.
You
I've
put on
always wanted to do
a
that.
glove on your safe hand
I had to.
and read
I was trying to
that
be your
portion of the book.
Vorin,
You read
Vorin,
that.
scribe.
Yeah, you read that portion of the Way of Kings to me as Dalinar has had the Way of Kings read to him by his scribes and even Navani. I don't think Navani.
I think
read it.
Navani might have once.
I think Navani hated that book because that's the reason Gavilar got killed.
Yeah, it was.
But also, she didn't really care about Gavilar too much. So
Oh, actually, while we're speaking of Gavilar, Dalinar, and all these things, who wrote "You must find the most important words a man can speak"?
Oh, who did write that, right? Because technically, Zeth wrote that in Alethi. Wow, he can read and write in Alethi.
Yeah,
But everybody thinks that Gavilar wrote it.
exactly. But I can't remember exactly. Was he commanded to write that by someone, or did Gavilar tell him to write that? Do you remember?
I remember.
I genuinely don't remember.
I remember why Zeth wrote that, because Zeth is honor bound in a billion different ways.
Oh, from his oath rock.
His oath stone. So Zeth, because he's so honor bound by his oath stone, Gavilar says his dying words to him. He's like, "Tell my brother you must say the most important words
Say the most important words. Yeah.
that a man can say," and then Gavilar dies.
Yep.
And Zeth is like, "Well, shit, I'm honor bound, but in my culture, you respect a dying man's dying wish." So he had no way to communicate this with Dalinar directly, so he wrote those down and then created a political scandal for, did Gavilar know how to read and write? Was he a heretic like his sister?
Like his sister, yeah.
I don't think they ever say that in the book, but like I thought of it that way.
Yeah.
But only people who know that were Sadeas, Gavilar,
People who were there
Sadeas,
that night,
Dalinar, and Navani.
Yeah.
I think were the only people who know.
And probably Asna.
Possibly Yasna
Possibly.
and Alucard. Maybe
Ooh.
Alucard doesn't know that. He's too stupid. Alucard's too stupid.
I have one thing I want to talk about. I want to briefly talk about Alucard's madness, but is there anything else we wanted to talk about?
What we could do is we could wrap this up for now because we've been recording for longer than I realized we would, and make a part 2 where we move on to Words of Radiance.
Let's finish with a really brief Alucard.
Sure. What do you want to talk about Alucard?
His madness, the things he sees. He's paranoid. He thinks he's being murdered by someone, or he's going to get murdered by someone.
Yeah, Alucard's constantly seeing shadows. So this ties into the second book, but I guess we're talking back and forth anyway, because I do want to talk in more detail about the second book specifically.
Yeah, well, and I wanted to end here with that, so then if we did just immediately hop into Words of Radiance, we had an opportunity to continue that train of thought.
Yeah. But Alucard's fun because Alucard is stupid. Alucard is a pompous, arrogant, young king.
He reminded me of Joffrey a little bit from Game of Thrones.
I guess you could make a bit of a comparison with Joffrey.
Not from kind of the very aggressive and malicious things that Joffrey was doing, but from that arrogance.
Yeah, I totally see that. I get what you're saying. Yeah. Joffrey had that arrogance to him, but at least Alucard, because he was stupid, wasn't malicious.
Yeah.
Which was like, I like Alucard. He sucks, but I like him.
Yeah.
You know?
It's almost like he just hasn't grown into his shoes yet, or he kind of grew into the wrong pair.
He reminded me, like, after Wit showed up, and Wit was important for a while, I was like, is Wit the fool or is Alucard the fool? Because Alucard is the fool.
Oh my gosh. Wit.
What
Wit
character?
Yeah, he's a fun guy.
I did think that Alucard's paranoia was a really fun thing to like spur the character on because it gave Delanar a lot of motivation, but he says something really interesting about the paranoia that he experienced.
Okay.
And he says that in the second book, so we can
We'll
talk about that
later.
some other time. But for anybody who's watching, thank you for tuning in.
Yeah.
And we're going to make a part 2 for this so we can actually talk about Words of Radiance. I really thought we'd cover both books in 1 2-hour session.
There's just so much.
There's just so much to talk about. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll
catch you next time.
catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.